Today, we are proud to have special guest Callie Brownson, the Cleveland Browns Chief of Staff, as part of our special Women in the NFL program to recognize the great influence women have had on the history. We are proud to have special guest Callie Brownson, the Cleveland Browns Chief of Staff, hired by new as Browns head coach Kevin Stefanski in 2020, works with departments from football ops to public relations to the locker room staff. She is the liaison to the rest of the organization for Coach Stefanski. Growing up in Alexandria, Virginia, sports were a focal point of her life. She attended George Mason University, and after a last-minute tryout with the DC Divas of the Women's Football Alliance, she started her 8-year playing career. During that playing career, she was a 4-time All-American, and she would go on to win a gold medal with Team USA at the International Federation of American Football Women's World Championship in 2013 and 2017. She started her coaching career in 2015 with her local Mount Vernon High School football team, eventually earning a spot with the New York Jets in 2017 as a personnel scouting intern. After a quick stop at Dartmouth College, where she became the first full-time female coach in Division I football history in 2018, she rejoined the NFL ranks with the Buffalo Bills in 2019 as a coaching intern. Coach Stefanski saw her potential and brought her into his Cleveland Browns organization in 2020. And then on November 29, 2020, she became the first woman to work as a position coach in NFL history when she filled in as the Cleveland Browns tight end coach. Today, you'll be lucky enough to hear from Coach Callie Brownson on what the game of football has taught her, what it means to her, the role women have had over the course of the NFL's rich history, and how women like herself are paving the way for young females around the world.
All right, everybody, and with that, welcome to the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio for our special Women in the NFL program today, featuring Miss Callie Brownson from the Cleveland Browns. My name is Kara Kwasinski, and I'm the Senior Video Producer and Chief Audio Engineer here at the Hall, and I'll be moderating our session today. To start off, our mission here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame is to honor the heroes of the game, preserve its history, promote its values, and celebrate excellence everywhere. And the values we promote and will be talking about today are commitment, integrity, courage, respect, and excellence. And I am excited, and I hope everybody watching here are too, to hear about how the values, along with others, have really impacted Miss Brown's life both on and off the football field. But however, before we get started, I do need to thank a few people. First, I want to thank Extreme Networks for all that they do for us here at the Hall and for schools around the country. This program could not take place without their support. And next, I want to thank teachers and administrators for all that they do in opening their classrooms to us and really, really embracing the idea that this message is so important to students and youth. Next and lastly, I want to thank our students, because without you guys asking the questions, we really wouldn't have a program. So we really appreciate you guys, and we're excited to see what you'll be asking today. Also, if you guys are watching at home or on YouTube Live, please make sure if you have a question, get your question ins down below for the chat. Put your name, where you are from, your school, followed by your question, and we'll hopefully get to it by the end of the program. And with that, please welcome with me the Chief of Staff for the Cleveland Browns, Miss Callie Brownson. Callie, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited.
Of course. So first, on behalf of everybody here at the Hall, we want to thank you for all that you do for the game and for being here with us on this program. So we're going to kick off right now by asking you, since we mentioned our values, they are extremely important for us. So we would like to know, out of all of those Hall of Fame values, which ones really resonate and stand out to you?
For me, There's a lot of values that are really important to me in so many ways in what I do. And character is such a big piece of all of that. And one of the reasons why I'm fortunate to work in the organization that I work in. And, character is such a big part of what we do and how we structure our culture and our environment and everybody who comes in this building. So I think that that's really, really important to us as well, is having a good, strong character, a good drive, determination, hard work, and then ultimately, just taking care of the people around you as well is a big part of the Cleveland Browns culture as it stands.
Definitely, I agree with that. And I think a lot of our students watching and our students that are with us today can really resonate with that. And character is super important. So now we're going to send it over to New York School 183. I'm sure they have a question. So if they want to get ready and walk up, unmute yourselves and ask a question for Miss Callie Brownson. Hi, guys.
Hi, guys.
Are we able to ask a question?
Yes, go right ahead. Yep, you guys can go. Whoever wants to ask your question first is good to go. Can you actually step closer to the camera and the mic so we can hear you a little bit better?
Have you ever faced sexism in your career?
Can somebody repeat that for me? I couldn't really hear it.
Have you experienced sexism in your career?
Any sexism in my career? That's a great question. And working in football, it's a male dominated industry. And it's an interesting thing. Actually, if you look at the NFL as a whole, close to 50% of employment is women, but that's on the business side, less than 1% of employment on the football side. So coaching, scouting, all of the things that are pertinent to the team is less than 1% of women. So I have been fortunate in my career to work with a lot of really, really great people who have always seen me as a coach, and not necessarily said she's a female in this position, but she's the right candidate for this position. And that's a big statement for the people that I've been so fortunate to work for. So Buddy Stevens at Dartmouth, Sean McDermott in Buffalo. I have not experienced anything where I felt isolated. And I think that's a really positive thing because not everybody has that experience, but it does show that progress is moving forward for women to feel more equal and more welcome in these environments. It's a great question.
Definitely. So now we're going to throw it out to Nathan Martin, who's out in our museum, actually standing with a very important artifact that we have here at the hall. So Nathan, can you hear us? Are you good?
Yeah, Kara, can you hear me?
Yeah, it's perfect. Take it away.
Awesome. Thank you for sending it out here. And like Kara said, guys, my name is Nathan Martin. I'm the Youth and Education Coordinator here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And right now I'm standing in our Pro Football Today gallery. In this gallery, we document and preserve the history of NFL records as they happen. So we've got stuff from players like Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Donald, Alvin Kamara, but I'm actually standing next to a sideline jacket that was worn by our special guest, Callie Brownson. Coach Brownson wore this when the Cleveland Browns defeated the Jacksonville Jaguars in Week 12. And in that game, she became the first woman to lead an entire position group when she was coaching the tight ends. It was just such a monumental moment in NFL history and for women in sports in general. So we're in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and I know, Coach Brownson, you've come down here before and seen this on display, but what does it mean to you to know that you've got a piece of football history, you've got a piece of your history, your legacy here on display and preserved here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton?
I think it's a really cool thing personally, but I think when I see that, I think so much more about what it means for women and girls in football. And the fact that there's female representation in the Pro Football Hall of Fame is such a big thing. And how many people will walk those halls and see a female on display, whether it's me or one of my colleagues who are other female coaches throughout the league, and be able to say women can work in the NFL. And on top of that, it's a positive thing. It's such a great thing. So to me, it's just a great symbol of the future and how far we've come and how much further we're going to be able to go as women in the NFL.
Yeah, I think that's awesome to hear, Coach. And I know that we've seen, fans come here, they got to take a selfie or take a picture with your jacket. Little boys, little girls, it doesn't matter. They're inspired by the accomplishments that you've had to this point in your career. And we're so thankful for you being willing to donate this to us to put on display here at the Hall of Fame. But thanks again. I'm going to send it back to Kara to get some more questions from our students.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Nathan.
Perfect. Thanks, Nathan. We appreciate you doing that for us. So now we had an opportunity on our podcast to speak with Sarah Thomas, who is one of the first female referees, full-time referees to be here. And she said, you don't do things because you want to be the first, you do it because you love it. So what kind of brought you to the Browns? And if you could tell us a little bit about your path to where you got to today.
Yeah, and I think that's a great quote from her because it's so true. You know, we got in this because we wanted to do what we were passionate about. It just so happens, you know, that because of the timing of it, you become a trailblazer, and it's great because we're continuing to move the needle. But you know, my path really, I love football from the time that I was a young kid. I watched it with my dad every Saturday. He was a Miami Hurricanes alum, so we watched Miami Hurricane football every Saturday. I fell in love with the game very quickly. And, you know, I played Pee Wee football when I was 9, which I loved. And then tried to play in high school. I was told no because I was a girl, which was obviously a tough thing. And really my first time, you know, being 13, 14, ever being told that women couldn't do something. That was my first real brush with reality of, hold on a second. There are things society says women can do and can't do. And then I ended up, you know, going to college and trying out for the DC Divas, which brought football back into my life. And in my time playing, my 8 seasons playing, you know, was introduced and invited out to become a high school coach, which was like meeting of both worlds. I loved coaching. I was coaching high school softball at the time. And obviously I loved football. I was playing at the time. And so that's really when it was clear to me that I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I had to continue coaching football. And the other big theme that happened with me is like representation. So when I started coaching at the high school level, you didn't see women coaching in the NFL or even college, and very rarely even in high school. So that was the ceiling for me. I was going to be a high school football coach, and that was my dream, and that's what it was going to be. And then, you know, through some programs that the NFL puts on, the Women's Careers in Football Forum, I was actually able to get introduced to the New York Jets, who offered me an internship. And I went and worked for the Jets for a few months for training camp and then do a couple of the seasons. And that really was the start for me when I knew this is what I want to do with the rest of my life. I'm not sure how I'm going to get a full-time job in the NFL. There's not a lot of women doing it, but I'm going to find a way. And this is my first step towards that. And so through that, I learned a lot. I met a lot of really great people in the Jets organization. And then, you know, a few short months later after, you know, I concluded that internship, I met Buddy Stevens, who was the head coach at Dartmouth. And I was actually working at camp that he was at. And I left an impression on him. So he called me, invited me to Dartmouth to intern. And then 2 weeks later offered me a full-time position there, which was really the start of my coaching trajectory. It started there. And it couldn't have been with a better person and in a better program than Coach Stevens and what they do at Dartmouth. And bonus question for anybody who can tell me where Dartmouth is, you get extra points today. And then, you know, from there, I was introduced to Coach Sean McDermott, who's the head coach of the Buffalo Bills, who in a similar fashion offered me an internship while I was still employed at Dartmouth. And then at the conclusion of training camp, offered me a full-time position to stay on board with them. And that was in 2019, went to the playoffs, was a really exciting time to be a Buffalo Bills fan and a great organization to be a part of. They're very big on diversity. They're very big on equal opportunities, and they're very big on investing in their young coaches, which they definitely did for me. And then Coach Stefanski got hired here in Cleveland, and through some mutual people that we worked with, got my name and called me and flew me out for an interview and offered me the position here. And it was an amazing opportunity that I knew I couldn't pass up, and has definitely been one of the best decisions I've made.
Definitely. And it sounds like you've had an illustrious career, and it's amazing that you are where you are. So speaking of your opportunities and stuff, what was it like to help coach the Titans that one day on game day when you had that golden opportunity and you were one of 3 female representations on each side of the NFL field?
Yeah, that was really awesome. You know, it's the stuff that you think about happening and you're like, oh, this is the next step of women in football. And then it happens, and it's kind of a surreal moment. You know, I remember walking out onto the field with the understanding that I was going to be coaching on one side, Jennifer King with the Washington football team was going to be on the other side, and then Sarah Thomas was going to be a referee. And for me, that was such an impactful moment because you had female representation in every facet of the game, which we had never seen before. So that was a huge step forward for women. And I my biggest thing stepping away from that was there was a lot of women and young girls who watched that game who added being a football coach or a football referee to what they want to do when they grow up. And that's exactly what the purpose of all of this is to help women and young girls know that they can do anything they put their minds to. And if you want it bad enough, you go get it. And I think that was such a big day for that.
It definitely was. I know I watched that game and I'm 24 and I was like, wow, you know what? This is a huge inspiration and moment for women everywhere. 2020, 2021 has been pretty big for women. So to me, you're an inspiration, especially for that game. But we're going to take it now and throw it back out to another school. We're going to go to River Ridge High School. Guys, if you have a question, please step right up to the mic and unmute yourself. All right, guys, whenever you're ready. I see you're still muted, so if you want to click that button. Perfect. There we go. Take it away.
How important do you feel accountability is on and off the field?
Great question. And one of my favorite values, talking about values to have, accountability is really, really important. And it's something that we preach here in this organization is we hold each other accountable to what our values are and what our core, goals are. So we, as a team, establish what our identity is. And that identity isn't just who we are on the field. That identity is who we are off the field. We're great teammates. We work together. We take care of each other. I think it's really important. And then, we as coaches consistently, and anybody who plays sports knows that your coach holds you accountable often, accountable to what your assignment is off the field, accountable to being on time. It's all such a big part of what you do every day. And then outside of that, we as coaches hold each other accountable to so many things. Coach Stefanski is constantly holding us accountable to growing and developing as a coaching staff. He constantly holds me accountable to making sure that I'm developing and growing. I think that it's such an important piece of being an athlete, but also just being a successful human being. And then the other piece of that is self-accountability. So one thing that I do is I'm always holding myself accountable to getting 1% better every day. I task myself with that and ask myself at the end of each day, what did you get better at today? And I think that that's been a big reason, that I've been able to grow over the past few years. And definitely a tip and a tool for you guys, ask yourself before you go to bed, what did I get better at today? Hold yourself accountable to growing and getting better at something, just something, even if it's a small thing like, hey, I'm not good at folding my clothes before I go to bed, but I did it today. So I got better at that. Like all of those things end up making you a stronger, better character person.
Definitely. That's great advice for everybody out there. But we're going to take it and switch gears a little bit. We do have a question from YouTube, from YouTube. So we're going to ask, growing up, you said you are a fan of Miami, but did you have a player or team you looked up to as a fan? Or what about that team or player that made them special?
Yeah, that's a great question. So yeah, I grew up watching University of Miami. We didn't watch a ton of NFL football when I was a kid. We were just glued into University of Miami, and the person that rings out to me, and he played there as I was getting into kind of the middle school age, was Sean Taylor, who anybody who doesn't know, he's a little bit on the older school side of it, but he was drafted by at that time the Washington Redskins, and he was a safety for the University of Miami. And the thing I loved the most about him was his passion and his tenacity as a player on and off the field. There was nothing that he cared more about than football and his team, and that to me, you could feel it through the screen. It was electric. He was my favorite player to watch. He was always running around. He was an impact player, and he was the kind of guy who, his presence on the field alone made it difficult for other teams. And I thought, watching him play, there was never a dull moment. There was never a time where your blood wasn't pumping watching Sean Taylor play. So I would definitely say he was my favorite to watch. And I mean, there's so many people who came out of the University of Miami when I was a kid who went to the pros. You're talking about Ed Reed, Clinton Portis, Warren Sapp. I mean, you could go for days on who came out of, the early 90s University of Miami Hurricanes, but Sean Taylor was definitely one of my favorites to watch.
Yeah, they have a long career too, especially with Ed Reed being in the Hall. The whole list goes on and on. They're a powerhouse of sending out players and different things like that. So, but we're going to continue on with another question from YouTube, from Madge Utes, an elementary in Canton, Ohio. What position did you play throughout your career as a player?
Yeah, so I started early in my career. I was a free safety, and had a blast doing it. Again, I think it's my favorite position on the field because you just get to be an athlete and you get to have fun with it. And then as my career went on, I ended up playing both sides of the ball. So I'd play free safety when I was on defense, and I'd play wide receiver and running back when I was on offense. And then I also returned our punts and our kicks. So I was pretty busy from the middle of my career on. But it was great for me as a player and then somebody who then aspired to be a coach because I was learning the game from every angle and experiencing it from every angle. So as much as my body regrets doing all of that at this point, it was the best possible experience I could have with football.
Definitely. And especially from your career and learning all sides, that's something you need to do and learn, is to have experience from every single thing so you can help teach and coach and do all that stuff. So continuing on about your career, what do you consider your greatest accomplishment and why?
Yeah, it's funny because I never think of one singular event. I think of the culmination of the past few years for me personally has been, a great clump of accomplishments and ways that I've moved forward. But when I think of that again, I kind of think outside of myself. And I think the past few years of what I've been able to be so fortunate to accomplish, what Jen King's been able to accomplish, Katie Sowers, Lori Locust down in Tampa and so forth. It's a great accomplishment for all of us because it's a great accomplishment for all women and young girls who, even if you don't want to get in football, we're changing the way society sees what women are capable of. And that's really the biggest part about it. Anytime you can get somebody who can say, oh, wow, I didn't know women could do that, but look at that. You have Lori Locust coaching in the Super Bowl. It's the biggest stage in football. I think that that's such a big thing. So I'd say all of the hard work we've put in the past few years to this point has been something that I'm so proud of. And I'm going to continue to keep working. We're going to continue to keep breaking those barriers down so that you guys all have a chance to be whatever you want to be when you grow up. And that's really what all of this is about.
Definitely. I love that. That's beautiful. I always say nowhere but to go but up from here. Even no matter how high you are, you can always continue to grow and break the ceiling and do whatever you need to do to keep growing and represent and all of that stuff. So, but now we're going to throw it out to St. Paul. If you guys, if you can bring some up with a question, remember to just unmute yourself and speak clearly so Ms. Brownson can hear you and answer your question.
Did anyone ever doubt you when you told them your dream?
That's a great question. Luckily, never to my face, but I would be remiss to say that it didn't happen. I'm sure of it. There was a time when I got done working, I finished my internship with the Jets, and I, for a few months until I met Coach Stevens, was looking for opportunities. And I had, some friends, some family members say, like, are you sure this is what you want to do? I mean, nothing's really panning out, and it's a really tough time to be a woman trying to get into football, and especially the NFL. Is this really what you want to do? And, there was definitely a lot of that dialogue going on. Don't you have a degree in sports management, you can chase all these other different careers and avenues. And for me, it's football or nothing, it's the NFL or nothing. So yeah, I definitely think that either whether it was said to my face or even just the kind of, hey, don't you want to redirect your career path? I definitely dealt with that. And it really comes back to knowing, what your passion and your dream is. At the end of the day, we are the ones who have to hold ourselves accountable to whether we accomplish our goals or not. So if I had listened to all that dialogue and said, hey, yeah, you know what, you're right, I should just go back to doing what I was doing, at least I had a job doing that, I would have to be the one who has to answer to myself in 5, 10, 15, 20 years as I, started to see the NFL change and say, well, you should have been there. You should have been a part of that group that was busting all of these doors open and helping, like if you had just stayed dedicated to it. So I think that that's something that you're always going to feel that, right? You're always going to feel like, especially if you're making big dreams and big goals that are distant, you want to go to this college, you want to be, this occupation, they seem big, but they're yours. They're your dreams. And if you want it bad enough, it's up to you to go get it. And I think that what we're seeing in the world today, not just in the football world, is anything is possible. Absolutely anything. If you work hard for it, you stay passionate, you stay dedicated, you work through the adversity and the people who may doubt you, you can have anything that you want.
Definitely. And speaking of adversity, what do you do and how do you keep going? What is like your motivation to get through that adversity? Or if it seems like all of the doors are closing, what do you do to keep going, to push through? What would you say is your advice for people to keep pushing through adversity?
I had a coach back in the day, and it was unrelated, obviously, to my career, but it was a piece of advice that really stuck with me. And he just said, remember your why. And that's something that I do all the time. I go back to when things get stressful, maybe when something's not panning out in the right way. I go back and I ask, why do you want this so bad? Why are you here? And for me, it's a lot of things. It's this is what I love. It's the thing that kept me up at night and I couldn't sleep until I got there. It was so many different things. It was the thing that I was most passionate about. And it was the only thing I saw myself being happy and fulfilled doing. So I think that's a big thing. And it can happen in small tasks. You have a bad day. All right. Remember your why. Remember how fortunate you are to be sitting in the chair that you're sitting in and having the opportunity that you do. I think for me in particular, I always take myself back to who I was 5 years ago, frustrated that I couldn't even get an interview in the NFL. And now here I am working in the NFL. And so I think that that's such a big thing to do. Always acknowledge and give yourself credit for how far you've come. That's another big piece of that too. You worked hard to get to a certain point. Give yourself credit for that and know that, hey, if I was this person who could make it from this point A to where I am now, I can definitely make it to the next point and the next point and the next point.
That's great. So what from your career and all of that stuff, from you growing and moving on and up to the next point, what has been really your favorite moment, or what has been kind of that moment that stands out when you're like, yes, I did this?
I would venture to say, I don't know how much everybody here followed, our season, but a little backstory is we made the playoffs and we were going to play in the wild card round in Pittsburgh. And right before the game, we had a multitude of coaches and some players test positive for COVID. And one of those coaches was our head coach. So basically what that meant was we were going to go to Pittsburgh and play in the playoffs without our head coach. And then a couple other coaches as well, which is baffling. And we went and Coach Stefanski is an unbelievable leader. And it's a testament to the foundation that he laid, that we went up to Pittsburgh and, for lack of a better term, we spanked them. So, and we won. And then we got to move on in the playoffs and play in Kansas City. And that's something that before the game you would think is unfathomable. How are you going to come in missing a couple key players, missing your head coach, and then go in and play such a great game against Pittsburgh? That to me was a moment that I will never forget. I'll never forget that feeling as the clock ticked down to 0 and you're looking and you're like, whoa, we're going on to the divisional round. And we did it because we battled through adversity. We stuck to our identity. We stuck to who we were. And we went up and we handled our business as if, it was business as usual. So that's a moment and just a feeling that I don't think I'll ever be able to forget.
Definitely. I remember watching that on TV and living in Canton, Ohio, Northeast Ohio. I was like, it's happening. It's happening. All of my coworkers that are huge Browns fans and everything, work the next day or work when we came back was going to be crazy. So congratulations to you guys on doing that too this season. That was amazing. But we're going to transition now. We're going to go back to YouTube. So we have a question. If there is a girl out there right now that wants to play or be involved with the game of football, what would be your advice to them?
Yeah, I think now's such an exciting time to be a girl who wants to learn more about being involved in football. You're starting to see around the country youth and high school and collegiate girls flag leagues that are popping up, which are a great way to learn the game. And then, I just think it's such an exciting time. But with that being said, it doesn't mean it doesn't come without adversity, because we're still kind of on the beginning cusp of being able to make it more normalized in society and especially in sports. So I think my biggest piece of advice is be persistent. Again, if you love football and you want to learn football, don't let anybody stop you. If you have the opportunity, learn as much as you can, enjoy it. If it's something you love, go after it, be persistent with it, because the road's not always going to be smooth. But again, if you love it, you should be able to do it.
Definitely. It's all about passion and finding what you love in life. So what was it like though, going back a little bit, what was it like to play with Team USA women's football?
Yeah, an incredible opportunity for me. I was playing, obviously, for the team in DC, and then was fortunate to be invited to play for Team USA overseas twice, 2013 and 2017. And there's nothing quite like being able to represent your country and play the sport that you love. And you're also playing with 44 of the other best women in the country, which was incredible. So those are two really awesome moments that, I keep near and dear to me, being able to go over there. And we won gold both times, which was great. We were in Finland in 2013, and then we were in Vancouver, Canada in 2017. And the other piece that I took from it is it's so cool to be able to go internationally and be around all these other women from other countries and everybody speaking the same universal language of football. That was really impactful for me because it shows you just how powerful football is, and how it means the same to so many other people around the world, not just in their country, even though it's American football but for me, I'm talking to these amazing women from Germany who love football just as much as I do. So, we're thousands and thousands and thousands of miles away, but we share something really, really cool.
That's what I found out working here at the hall is we've had people from all over the country, from all different countries. We have a volunteer who still is a virtual volunteer, virtual docent from England. So it's really, like you said, it's a universal language and so many people speak it. It's a great way to be connected and connect everything. So we're going to take it and we're going to throw it back out to one of our schools. We're going to throw it to Belmont County. Guys, if you want to have someone step up, unmute yourself and ask a question. Thank you.
My name is Ryan, and I wanted to know what inspired you to be a coach.
Great question.
That's a great question. Yeah. I kind of fell into coaching, honestly. And like I said, I had graduated high school and I had played high school softball. So that was kind of my big interest at that point. Football hadn't come back into my life at that point yet. And I got asked to come and be an assistant coach at a local high school and coach softball. And I loved it. I loved being able to have been a player and then translate and help other young girls find a way to be successful and love softball like I did and get better. And so I knew that I loved coaching. And then it's interesting. I was at that same high school and I was walking the halls and it was springtime. So the football program was kind of in conditioning and training. And the head coach of the team came by and said, "Hey, I heard you play. Have you ever thought about merging those two worlds of you coach softball, you play football? Have you ever thought about coaching football?" And it kind of stopped me in my tracks because at that point I had never thought about it because again, there was no representation. I wasn't seeing it. So I wasn't even sure it was possible. And he invited me out that spring for workouts and then offered me that position. And I remember I finished my first week. I was a little obviously hesitant, didn't know what to expect coaching the guys. But after that first week, I was like, this is amazing. This is what I want to do. I love coaching. And football is just completely different. It's a completely different coaching experience than coaching softball. To me, it was like, I got to go out there, run around, have fun. I was being able to enrich their lives on and off the field and coach them, with things that were pertinent to their on field, but also be able to help and guide them through life outside of the field. So to me, it was that first year coaching in high school solidified to me that I had to find a way to be a football coach.
Yeah, it goes back to your passion. So now we're going to go to New York School 183 again. If you guys want to have another student step up and ask a question, just remember to unmute yourself and just speak loudly so that everybody can hear you.
Ask any question. You can ask the one that we can switch. Okay. Hi. Hello. Okay. What obstacles and challenges did you face in your career?
What obstacles and challenges did I face?
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, a lot. I think the biggest one for me was after getting the internship with the Jets, there weren't any other opportunities. So the big obstacle was here I am as a woman who can't get my resume in front of anybody because I'm a woman. And that was really frustrating because I knew that I was capable. I knew that I could come into whatever organization it was and add value and do a great job for them. But because I was a woman, I couldn't even get the opportunity to have the conversation with somebody to say, I promise, I'm the right decision. So I think that was a big obstacle and one that was frustrating because it wasn't anything that I did wrong. It was just the way the structure of the whole thing was set up. And as for overcoming that, I just kept being persistent. I just kept trying to make connections through the people that I worked with at the Jets. I just kept showing up to camps and clinics to coach and bringing, my A game and making sure, hey, if I get an opportunity to make an impression on somebody, it's going to be a good one. So, you're going to get those obstacles. You're going to have those people who maybe say no, or when you have a really challenging task and you're trying to work through it, stay persistent. Again, always go back to your passion and why you want to do it so bad, and that'll help carry you through.
Definitely. So now, after you overcome all those obstacles and everything that you have, what was it like when you were finally hired by the Cleveland Browns for the position that you're in now?
Incredible. I remember sitting and talking with Coach Stefanski when I was interviewing for the position, and just feeling like what he was trying to do here in Cleveland was really special. And then on top of that, instead of me feeling like being a part of this was special, he was already, and he just met me, invested in me and my growth and what I was going to become in my career. And that to me really stood with, it stuck with me. Like, hey, I'm interviewing for a position to work for him, and he's sitting here already telling me that he's invested in my growth and my development. And so for me, when I got the job and got started and immediately was learning from him as a leader, and then working with all these fantastic people that are here in Cleveland in this building, I go back to it. I think it was one of the best decisions that I've made. And obviously 2020 and COVID presented a lot of challenges this past year, but because of where I am, working for who I am and working with who I do, I grew so much this year, and I'm excited to see how much I continue to grow.
Definitely. So what would you say then was your welcome to the NFL moment? If you had one, or did you have one?
Kind of, yeah. So when I took the internship in Buffalo, Buffalo does their training camp at a local college in Rochester, and I showed up and I hadn't even really met anybody yet. And I remember kind of walking in and thinking I had a little bit of time to get myself situated, and I absolutely did not. It was go, 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 go. Immediately met with tasks, and I need this done and get going. And, I look back at that and I was just kind of like, all right, here we go. Which ended up being one of the best things for me, because it set the pace high for me from the second that I walked in the door. And I can't say enough good things about the people that I was able to learn and work with at Buffalo. They pushed me, they taught me, they invested in me. And it really started from the second I walked in that door, before I could even put my bags down. And I'm grateful for that, because it helped, build who I am now. And I was grateful to work with them.
That's awesome. So we're going to throw it back out to River Ridge High School. Guys, if you have another question, step right up to that mic, unmute yourself, and you can ask Ms. Brownson your question.
Hi, so my question is, what are some significant situations or events that took place in your life that shaped who you are today?
That's great. I think one of the biggest ones that stands out to me was I was raised by a single father. And he's really, when you talk about a coach, he was my first coach, if you will. And, that was tough. It was me and my brother, my dad raising us. He was also starting his own company. We were struggling to make ends meet. And I remember watching my dad. He never missed a game. He was always committed to us. He was working hard to create his own company. He was working hard to keep a roof over our heads while juggling a million things. And that was a really significant time in my life, because it taught me about sacrifice. It taught me about hard work. It taught me a lot about passion, wanting to get something done and working really hard and sacrificing whatever you need to get it done. And then it also taught me a lot about, we talked about taking care of the people around you. No matter what happened, the most important thing to my dad was us. So I think that was very significant in me figuring out, a lot of the core pieces of my work ethic and my character, and really chasing your dreams. I always go back to those fond memories when I think about, is this attainable? If my dad could pull all of that off, anything is attainable. So that's definitely something that sticks with me.
Oh, that's awesome. That's so sweet that you have that kind of that inspiration to keep going and moving up in your career. And speaking of inspiration and motivation, this question is actually from YouTube. So how do you as a coach continue to keep your players motivated and keep them at the best level that they can be every single day?
Yeah, a lot of it's challenging them. You can't, just like I hold myself to the same standard of never plateauing. You do the same for the players. These seasons are long, and sometimes you get tired, you get exhausted, things get a little mundane. But for me, it's all about energy as well. I get to wake up every day and, drive to an NFL facility and go to my office, and that brings a ton of energy. So when I'm out at practice, I'm, like a pinball, I'm bouncing around, running around. And a lot of that feeds into the players. If they see you moping around and so forth, then they do. But I'm like, hey, we get to practice for 2 hours. We're outside. It's a beautiful day. Let's do it. So I think energy is a big part of it too. Energy and challenging them every week to get better. Hey, this is what I got better at. What are you going to get better at this week? And we do a lot of that here. But yeah, again, I think energy is such a big part of being able to stay motivated, loving what you do, and going after it.
Definitely. I always say you got to give positive to get positive, and keeping it like positive mindset and all the energy up. It just helps kind of charge everybody around you, because when you're negative, everybody else is going to kind of falls that negative energy. So you just got to really keep it up. But
Absolutely.
Now we're going to go to St. Paul again for you guys to ask a question. Guys, if one of you wants to stand up again, walk up to the mic and unmute yourself and ask your question. Thank you.
Do you think more women will get leading jobs in the NFL?
Great question. Yes, absolutely. I think we're on a really great trend right now too, in what we're seeing with the NFL. And, I'll allude to what was said earlier. 2020 was a really tough, challenging year for everybody, but it was, silver lining, if you're looking for the positives, it was a really great year for women in the NFL. And just recently you saw Jen King get promoted to the assistant running back coach with the Washington football team. So she levels up. Lori Locust is the assistant defensive line coach for the Tampa Bay Bucks. She levels up. There's a lot of really good things happening, but I think a big part of being able to put women in good positions is making sure you're doing it right and making sure these candidates are ready for those positions as well, which is where that investment and growth and development piece comes into play, is just ensuring that I'm growing as much as I can. So when that opportunity opens up, I'm going to do the best possible job I can with it. Same thing with Jen. It was a no-brainer that she was ready for that position. And because of that, she's going to do a phenomenal job, and she's going to change the way other people see that position around the league, and if women can do it. So I definitely see such a great upward trend. If you would have asked me 5 years ago that we'd all be sitting where we're sitting, and that it was going to continue to be a positive trend like it has been over the past 3 or 4 years, I would have been like, we'll see. Yeah, I hope so. But now it's like, it's definitely happening. And I think 2021 is going to be another year where you see a lot of women accomplishing some really great things, and we're just going to keep working hard.
Yeah. So now, do you feel any pressure as a mentor to young females who want to work in sports, or is it just your turn to give back and lead for others like people have done for you?
I definitely think it's my opportunity to give back, and it's my opportunity to make sure that, I'm sending the elevator back down. So based off of, doing the best job that I can every day, I'm opening up an opportunity for another woman or a few other women. So yeah, I don't ever see it as pressure. I see it as such a great opportunity to continue to change the way society sees it, because down the road, when I'm, old and can't do this anymore, I'm excited to turn the TV on and see a ton of female representation in football, and know it was because of all the hard work that went in, and we normalize it happening. And I'm looking forward to the day that when a female gets hired on a team, it's not a massive headline. It's just normal. Like, hey, we just hired a great coach to be a part of our staff. And it doesn't matter what her gender is.
Yeah. So is that where you see the future of women for the NFL going, or where do you see that the future for females, not just in the NFL, but for sports everywhere going?
Yeah, I see it in two ways. I see quantity and quality. I see more women getting opportunities, more women getting their foot in the door and having a chance. And then I also see more women getting promoted. I see them climbing up the ladder. We talk about the glass ceiling, and the glass ceiling's whole symbolism is that you can only make it to a certain point. And you can't ever get past that point. And what I see for the NFL is we're going to continue to break through that glass ceiling and break that point and show you, okay, so you didn't think a female could be a position coach? Yes, she can. Okay, you didn't think a female could be a coordinator? Yes, she can. And then in sports, you're going to be able to see it throughout all these organizations. You see a lot of women actually in professional sports and leadership roles on the business side. And I mean, these are women who are running the way organizations work, and that's big. And we're going to continue to keep doing that. There's female owners in the NFL. I work for one. And I mean, it's good. It's great. I see the future of the NFL being very bright. And I think the more that diversity is pushed, and the more you're able to increase the diversity of thought in the room, the better, this league's going to get. And I think it's going to be a really cool thing to watch.
Right. The future is bright ahead for everybody and for females in the NFL and sports everywhere. So we're going to throw it out to Belmont County for our last question from a school. So, like I've been saying, if one of you guys wants to step up, unmute the mic and ask your question.
Where did your love for football come from?
Good question. I think my dad remembers the exact date that we watched our first football game, and eventually I'll have to ask him what that is. But I was about 5 or 6, and we were sitting on the couch watching college football Saturday. And the next week, I didn't want to wait until Saturday. So he took me to the local high school and we watched Friday night football, and then we went into Saturday. And granted, I was young. I knew nothing about the game, but I loved it. It was fast. It was physical. And college football is so fun to watch because of all of the school spirit that goes into it. It's such a cool event that happens and everybody's so excited for it. So that's where it really started for me. And then after the game, I would go outside. My dad bought me a little football that I could actually fit in my hands. And I'd go and I'd throw it myself in the backyard. He taught me how to throw a football shortly after. And it really just became this like progressive love affair of me and the sport. And I was a fan of a lot of sports. I loved baseball. I loved hockey. I loved basketball. But there was something about football that was just different for me. And the way I loved it was different. I could go to a baseball game and sit through it and enjoy it and have fun and cheer. But for football, it was different. It was a total different engagement for me. And it's one of those things that you just can't ignore.
Definitely. So before we wrap, we have some breaking news that I keep getting on my phone. My little sports center keeps popping up, and especially for our Browns fans, Jadavion Clowney is now a Cleveland Brown. So it looks like you guys are really solidifying your defensive line.
Yeah, no, we're really excited. I think that, we've done such a great job in free agency and have a great plan in place for the draft to just continue to be a better team. That's what we tasked ourselves with at the conclusion of 2020 is how do we get better this year? It starts with the guys you have out on the field, and then it starts with what we do as coaches. So we're definitely moving in a great direction. And I don't know how many people on this call are Cleveland Browns. I'm hoping after this, everybody, obviously. But it's an exciting time to be a Cleveland Browns fan. And I'm really excited for the city and what's going to come in 2021.
Definitely. We wish you all the best in the upcoming season. We're definitely cheering for our Brownies here. But with that, we're going to wrap up this installment with you and the Women in the NFL program. And I know I can't thank you, and here everybody at the hall can't thank you enough for taking the time to speak with us. So everybody, let's give Miss Brownson one more round of applause for being here today, answering all of our questions. I see everybody clapping with their hands. You can't hear them because they're on mute, but with that, we thank you guys.